In the past year, I've listened to 1,000+ hours of podcasts. That's a little bit more than 2.5 hours of podcast listening per day. Now, of course, I'm not listening to 2.5 hours of podcasts every day last year, but there will be days where that's all I did on my free time. That's either going to or from work, that's either going out for a walk, and sometimes I even listen to most of the podcasts when I'm about to go to sleep. Honestly, I just ended up listening to a lot more podcasts than music last year. I got into a podcast because I wanted to learn as much as I can. And of course, I stayed because I enjoyed the host and the incredible insights that they usually share. I've listened to a lot of different podcasts, but today I just want to focus on the podcast that I learned the most. And these lessons covered four of the basic key principles in my life, which is physical, emotional, financial, and social growth. The first one that I wanted to talk about is the one and the only Andrew Huberman. Now, if you guys don't know, or if you're living under a rock, which mostly I am, Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist and a Stanford professor. That in and of itself makes him credible for the things that he teaches and the knowledge that he shares. But what makes his podcast stand out is how he connects science to actionable tips for improving our for improving our body and brain. One thing that really stuck to me was when I was watching one of the videos. It's not even his videos. It's one of the other videos of his friends, and it showed that he was shirtless. So that's the first time that he probably showed his to the world. I don't know if that was intentional or unintentional, but either way, you just see that he is applying his own knowledge and his own learnings to his own life. And hats off to him. He does that. It's not all, he's also actions as well. But I digress. So these are the two key takeaways that I learned from him. Again, there's a lot of things that I learned from him, and a lot, but these are the two that most to me, which are morning sunlight and focus tools. So for the morning sunlight, Huberman says, your body's clock is set by light. Get outside within first hour of waking up, and morning sunlight regulates your sleep and boosts focus. The second one is focus tools. For better concentration, Huberman recommends 90 minutes of work blocks. It's based on how the brain cycles through focus and fatigue. Now, if I know anything about myself, I don't want to learn anything unless I actually apply this in my real life. Here is how I applied it into my day to day activities. The first thing that I do is when I wake up, and this only applies during spring, fall, and summer, because during winter, I know I'm all about that self development and all that self improvement journey, but there are some things that I'm not just gonna do, and that is going outside and freezing winter and just get some sunlight onto me. But again, whenever it's fall, spring, or summer, I go straight outside and just let that ray of sunshine trickle down into my body. At first, it's such a hassle just because you're all groggy, you just woke up, you don't even want to get up at all. But once you get those few days in of just going outside and letting that heat go into your body and just feeling that warmth, it becomes a little bit more pleasurable than anything. Just because there are benefits, but there are also perks of doing it. And then the focus time blocking is I actually dedicate portion of my day to focus on the things that I want to do, or sometimes even the things that I need to do, and I really need to hone in my focus on those kind of projects. Actually, I'm doing that time blocking right now where I am blocking a period of my time to dedicate for this video. The second podcast that I want to talk about that is related on the physical improvement is for Chris Williamson, or the Modern Wisdom Podcast. Modern Wisdom Podcast basically complements a lot of Huberman's advice. Chris dives into practical insights for optimizing life and interviews a lot of the incredible guests, including actually Huberman himself. Here is one of the key quotes that I learned from him. Discipline is remembering what you really want. Now, again, I'm not too sure if he quoted that from someone else, but I do remember him saying this. By him saying this, I do remember that it reminds me that optimizing health isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about consistently doing it. And this is basically everything that I want to do in my life is the consistency of improvements. There's a lot of things that I'm not consistent about and there are improvements that I want to do in myself. The next one I want to talk about is financial improvement. I learned at a really young age, which I am fortunate enough to even learn it, is how to deal with money. All right, let's talk about money. I learned so much from Andrew Giancola's podcast. I know I just butchered that last name. His podcast is named the Personal Finance Podcast. He simplifies money management for people like me, everyday individuals just trying to get better with finances. There are a lot of things that I learned about him, but the things that stuck to me the most was just the simple things such as the 50-30-20 rule and investing in index funds. This is not that uncommon for a lot of the financial podcasts out there. But the way he talks about it and the way that he simplifies the topics is what gets me to stay and listen to his podcasts. The 50-30-20 rule basically just means to split your income into needs, wants, and savings. It's a straightforward budgeting system. Again, 50% on needs, 30% on the wants, and 20% on the savings. And for the investing in index funds, Andrew recommends low cost index funds as a stress free way to grow wealth over time. Again, I'm not a financial guru, I'm not a financial expert or a professional. If you guys do want financial advice, go to your local financial counselor regarding any kind of finances that you guys want to ask. Because I'm not an expert, I'm just an enthusiast in learning how to grow and make more money or just even savings and finance in general. But again, I'm not an expert and I'm not a professional. Some of the few things that I learned how to do is basically investing as early as I can and investing as consistently as I can. So again, maybe $100 per month. Once you're consistent with that and once you're used to that, $200 per month, and then $300 per month, and then go on and so forth. It's such a simple way of doing this, but again, it just backtracks and proves the evidence that a slow compounding investment can actually be a greater return in the long run. Now, for the third one, I want to talk about emotional growth. And the two podcasts that I want to talk about this is Hidden Brain and No Stupid Questions. All right, I'm going to butcher his name again, but Shankar Vedantam, Hidden Brain, and Stephen Dubner and Angela Duckworth's No Stupid Questions are incredible podcasts for understanding why we think, feel, and act the way we do. Some of the few key takeaways that I learned from them is that cognitive reframing, according to Shankar, says you can't control what happens to you, but you can control the story you tell yourself about it. This kind of small mindset shift can make challenges more manageable in the long run. And then Angela Duckworth emphasizes grit, saying passion and perseverance are what separates success from failure. They're talking about in one podcast about how grit can be important for a successful future. So there are times when I am feeling stressed and I'm feeling burnt out. I try to reframe the situation by asking myself, how can I turn this into a learning opportunity? Because a change in mindset and a change and shift in the way I think about a certain situation can actually prove how I think in the long run. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is social connections and how to improve them. And there are two podcasts that I want to talk about this, and which is Ear Biscuits by Rhett and Link and The Art of Manliness by Brett McKay. Again, relationships are the foundation of a fulfilling life. Rhett and Link's Ear Biscuit dives into a friendship and vulnerability, while Brett McKay's The Art of Manliness focuses on personal and social mastery. I've been watching Good Mythical Morning ever since I was young. That's why Rhett and Link holds a special place in my heart. Knowing that in their ear biscuits that they're some kind of different people because they show more of their vulnerable side and they try to talk more about their professional and personal troubles. Makes them feel more human, makes you have more connection with them. And that's why I love listening to Ear Biscuits. Sometimes we forget that Red Link is 40 plus years old, so they have that type of father wisdom that they share to the world. There's this one quote that I got from Rhett in one of the podcasts that they did, and he said, the most important thing you can do for someone is just listen. And again, it's such a simple thing, but is often forgotten. And I just want to share that to the world so that, again, it's not forgotten. And then there's one thing I learned from Brett, and he emphasizes that creating rituals of connections like weekly family dinners or monthly meetups with friends is such an important thing when it comes to social connections. I wanted to talk more about this just because this is one of the things that made me feel a strong connection with my family members, my friends, and my fiance. I usually pick a schedule, a day, and I try to communicate with them that I want to meet up with them or just hang out with them. That's either for a walk outside, a high coffee, a movie, anything. Because consistently showing up to your loved ones is the key to keeping the relationships strong. The last two podcasts that I want to talk about is something more of a fun one, in my own personal opinion, which is Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F and Wendy Zuckerman's Science Versus. They're all about questioning what we think we know. The other one is more on the philosophical side of life, and the one is more on the scientific side of life. And I'm both on the spectrum. Mark says you can't care about everything. Choose your struggles wisely. And I had to learn this the hard way just because back then I care about what other people think of me so much. And in a way where I kind of neglected myself. So by choosing what I care about and focusing more on those, it makes me feel secure and makes me feel more independent for myself. And then Wendy says, follow the evidence, not the hype. Always ask, what does the science say? And that's just a really, really fun thing to say. Again, I'm in the medical field. I work as a registered nurse, and I love me a good science research. And Wendy Zuckerman Science Versus just makes a lot of the science more fun. And that is it. Those are the few podcasts that I listened to in 2024. There's a lot more podcasts that I want to mention, but those are the few ones that really stood out to me. Again, I listened to 1,000+ hours of podcasts, some more memorable than others. But here's what I learned about self improvement, because self improvement isn't about everything. It's not about doing everything, do this, do that, make yourself busy as much as possible, be the best person. It's about finding what resonates with you and taking a small, consistent steps pretty much every day to improve your life for the better. So again, I hope you gained something from this video. And if you would like to share some of the podcasts and some of the quotes and some of the topics that you learned from them, please, you're welcome to do so. And that's it for the video. Thanks for watching.